Okay, so I've just started recording now. We've just done the introductions. We're just going to start talking calibration. So I thought what might be a good idea is have an open conversation about, you know, now that you've done it for a while, what are the skills of calibration that if you were modeling or teaching to someone who didn't know how to do it, that you'd say, oh, make sure you do this, or make sure you're aware of this, or... And then once we've done that is maybe get somebody to volunteer to do a little present state to desired outcome, first part of a coaching, and then we all calibrate that. So I don't know how that sounds. Thought it might be quite interesting.
Good. Sounds good.
In terms of that, I suspect we'll all see different stuff and hear different stuff and sense different stuff. And it might just be useful for you to be, you know, go meta to that and go, oh, that's interesting. I'm quite a visual person. Funny how I saw all the visual stuff. Or, you know, I'm quite a gut-based person. I heard lots of gut language. And just being aware that we will have our own filters and preferences that will tone probably what we see. So if I was a baby new coach and you were offering me some mentorship, what do we need to know about calibration, either generically or specifically to mBIT? What are some of the, what do you remember about it? What do you calibrate when you're with a client? What sorts of things do you calibrate?
Their breathing.
Yep. So what are you calibrating with breathing?
Are they breathing fast or slow? Is it shallow or deep breathing?
Yep. And behind that, for what purpose?
To see if they're sympathetic or parasympathetic.
Yeah. So it's a great ANS calibration, right? Yep. Beautiful. What else?
Their language, just to check if it's more heart, head, or gut. So where they're talking from most of the time.
Yep. And can you remember the two different forms of language that we look for?
Verbal and non-verbal.
Yeah, that's fair comment. It's not where I was headed, but yeah, that's absolutely fair comment. We'll come back to that one. So in terms of language, there's kind of two categories we teach in that list when we get you to do all the practice ones on the 4-day course. Do you remember the word predicate? So direct reference or predicate. So direct reference is what?
My tummy hurts.
Yep. Obvious gut reference, right? So
it makes me sick. Yeah.
Ah, now. So it makes me sick.
To my stomach.
Ah, if it makes me sick to my stomach, I've done both a direct reference and a predicate. So the direct reference is when you use the words of either head, heart, or gut. And the predicate is when you allude to head, heart, or gut, but you don't actually use the word. So if you make me sick, it's a predicate for sure of gut, but I haven't actually said gut. And you might get a mix of both. You might get some, you know, somebody might have a preference for one or other, but you're listening out for both, because sometimes they don't actually say the word head, heart, or gut, but you can still know where they're coming from. Okay, what else are we looking for?
Might look at skin color and see if their skin color changes as they say, make a reference to something.
Yep. Yep.
The language of metaphors.
Oh, beautiful. Metaphor, one of my favorites. Yep, you're going to be listening for metaphors, and metaphors are great to bring back in at a later stage, because if someone's stucking themselves in a metaphor, when you can reframe it back to them, having just slightly tweaked to their metaphor, it can be a really powerful way of unstucking them or helping them unstuck themselves. Yep, what else?
Their hand gestures, like seeing where their hands are when they're telling you things.
Yep, and Avalon, you mentioned that, and I said I'd come back to it, and then I forgot. I apologise. So, yeah, gestures. If I gesture here, what brain is it?
Heart.
Where?
Gut. Gut brain.
Of
Gut.
So it's interesting, right? So remember, because the gut goes right from mouth, high up could still be gut.
Need to ask.
Good point. Yeah.
What other sort of kind of gestures might you see that might be interesting to be aware of? And feel free to go lateral and, you know, other stuff you might be aware of that's outside of straight mBIT that you might calibrate.
I just got a, when you were doing that thing there, I got a little bit of a, maybe we're looking at like a throat chakra thing as well.
Okay. So
and I'm looking at, like, as far as other gestures, I'm looking at things like rocking or twitching or, you know, like fidgeting.
Yep. So say more about those, because they're kind of all relatively different. So if we go with the rocking first, if I was sat here like this for your client, obviously you're going to see it. It might not be as obvious as that. I might be gentler. What would you be, because remember, we're calibrating to get a sense of what's going on in that person, right? We're hypothesis creating. What sort of things are going through your mind if I'm telling you my story and I'm...
It depends. Like if it was gentle rocking like you're doing, I get a sense that the person's trying to soothe themselves, trying to bring themselves into, like trying to bring themselves down.
Yep, beautiful. But I love that it depends. Because the honest answer is we don't know. And any movement in it on its own, you could so overinterpret. So you'd be curious, if I'm rocking, am I trying to calm myself down? Well, let me just calibrate your breathing a minute. What's going on with your breathing? That might give me a double indicator that I'm right or wrong. And then I might listen for certain words that might suggest that I'm struggling or stressing or being anxious. And then I'd go, yeah, probably I am right. That rocking is a way of self-soothing.
And how the pace at which they're speaking, if they're speaking very fast, if there's clarity in what they're speaking, you know, if their eyes are moving around or if they're fixated, you know, like that.
Beautiful.
Plus posture as well. Like if they're hunched over and doing that rocking thing, it's going to mean something different than if they're like shoulders back and having a good old dance, you know?
Do many of your clients dance while you do?
Mine? Yeah.
Beautiful. So there's lots, right, Frank? Oh, you're moving your camera. I thought you'd been polite and put your hand up. What else? Let me look at my list. What have we not? Oh, okay. So what else are we? We kind of alluded to some of it, but maybe not fully. What else will we be looking for?
Emotional reactions.
Say a bit more.
Starting to wet in their eyes, laughing or crying.
Yep. So some of that would be indicating what? Which brain?
Heart.
Heart. And anything feeling related is one of the prime functions of the heart, right? So you would also be listening across all 9 of the prime functions to see which ones show up.
I have a wondering, actually, more than I had a client who would close her eyes a lot while she's talking. Like she'd not completely shut, but she would say 2-3 sentences in a row with her eyes almost closed all the time. And it seems like she's almost rolling her eyes up, but again closing her eyelids. It was a bit interesting. I never understood what or how I could interpret it. Have you ever, any one of you, experienced something like that, client or?
I've not had someone roll eyes. I've had them close eyes.
Suzanne, I've got a client at the moment who, when she's talking, she her eyes look from side to side, so that's an eye thing as well.
Yeah, so anyone with NLP background would have a whole different set of calibrations they'd be using with eye movements.
Yeah. She
She's more
does it.
about me. Yeah.
She does it very definitely. Like it's almost, she talks to me and then it's off to the side and then off to the side again.
Yeah, and it's a really beautiful example of where if you've got other tools, you weave them in and you bring those in as well. I don't teach eye accessing cues as part of the 4-day mBIT coach set.
No.
But you know, anyone who's rapidly moving eyes around, again, back to what Beth said, the pacing of that, there's an element of agitation in that if they're rapidly, you know. But we know from NLP that it might be that they're accessing visual cues or auditory cues or, you know,
yeah,
constructing things or reviewing things or, yeah. Yep. Anything else? A couple of other ones we haven't mentioned at all yet. Think acronyms. I'm cheating because I've got a copy of the flip chart in front of me. That's what I'm looking at. So NICs as well, right? If you're looking for prime functions, partly what you're doing for that is looking for the NICs. Is there a dominant brain? Is there one of the brains that's been left off completely? And, you know, remember, we cover it more in Master Coach, but you'll be aware of it as a coach, that you can also do nicking within a brain. So you might do 2 of the 3 prime functions within one brain and not the other one at all. So if you go back to your emotions one, what about someone who talks about connection with other people, talks about values, but expresses no feeling whatsoever? So you can also have nicking within a brain as well as between brains. Two more little bits on the flip chart that we do, and it's the last 2. One of which is syntax. So we're calibrating not only which brains they use, but in which order. And then the last one is cognitive dissonance. And we cover that in a separate chunk on the training. So there's quite a lot there to hold in terms of when you're calibrating a client. You probably don't have the whole of that list mentally in your kind of mind's eye to check down. And that's okay, because we only need enough to get what's our easiest point of access and what's our likely point of leverage. Okay. But for the sake of tonight, when we're going to really play with it, what might be an idea is if you deliberately pick, say, 2 of that list and you focus just on those. And if we try and make sure that between us we've got all of the list covered, then when we feed back and say, so what did you see, what did you notice, we'll have covered everything. And you might see stuff that's not the 2 that you're looking for as well. But if you focus deliberately on, say, 1 or 2 of them.
For him, the same thing. Hello, sorry. Apologies.
I've had an alien week. I had aliens in my coffee yesterday.
Yes, I saw them.
There's a situation unfolding. I'll just share it with you. My son's school has been shut down because they had a case of COVID-19. We've just been coping with that this week. And my wife's school has detected a case of COVID-19 today. So my wife's just returned home. So my apologies, I had to turn off the video and have a conversation with her, and my apologies. But that's what's been going on throughout this week. It started on Monday, my son's school. And then my friend has gone into palliative care. So that's where the idea of time came front and center for me this week. So Once again, my apologies for upsetting the conversation.
No need to apologize whatsoever. That's real life, right?
Yes.
That is the reality we are living within.
Yeah.
So sorry to hear that.
That's all right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go down the list. And how can we split these up?
Should we first decide who's going to be doing?
Nice. See, Beth, do you want to just take over and facilitate the call? No, sorry.
No.
Feel free.
Suzanne, you're trying to get out of it now.
Okay, so if we're happy to do it as a whole group, we need someone willing to be the coach and somebody willing to share something they're willing to share, remembering this is being recorded, just to the level of that present state to desired outcome and what stops you. So there may be a frustration factor in there because you're not going to go all the way through to resolution. We're not doing the whole coaching session. We're just calibrating that initial present state, desired outcome, what stops you. So does anyone fancy being the coach?
I'll be the coach.
Oh, thank you, Colette.
Good one.
So you know what's coming next, right? Anyone got anything they would like to get insight on or explore that they're happy to do with Colette as their coach and while it's being recorded? And you might want to tone it to being a, 2, 3, 4 out of 10, not a 12,
Not a 10.
14. Yeah, not a 12, 14 out of 10.
I'm more than happy, Suzanne.
I've missed you, Rosemary Brown.
Well, at least then I don't have to calibrate and show how green I am again.
Okay, so we have a beautiful coach, we have a beautiful client, and we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 categories of, and we got another 20 people. So roughly 2 people per category. So who would like to do direct references to the neural networks?
Me, I will.
Thank you. Shelley, it's yours. Feel like an auction bidder. Anyone else want to join Shelley on looking at direct references to the neural network? So that's when we mention, oh, Crystal, thank you. Beautiful. So the next one is predicates. So this is where you're talking about head, heart, or gut, but you're not mentioning the word head, heart, or gut.
I could do that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dima.
I'll do that too.
Thank you, Dara. Okay, so metaphors and figures of speech.
I can do that.
Beautiful. Anyone else? Join Patrice in metaphors and figures of speech.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that one.
Wonderful, Gail. Thank you. One we didn't talk about that's on the list is modal operators, the shoulds, the possibilities, the necessities. So I'll just throw that in. If you notice any of those, we'll talk about it. We won't have it a separate category. Non-verbal. So this is quite a biggie because this is your gestures, your movements, your breathing, any kind of body patterning.
I'll do that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No.
Could have 2 or 3 people in that one. That's quite a big category.
I can do too.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd like that one.
Lovely. Okay, we're getting there. Prime functions. That's quite a biggie as well, actually, because you're tracking 9.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Frank. Who's going to join Frank on prime functions? I'll do that then. There you go. Neural syntax. Who are our big picture people?
I'm a big picture.
Have you already got 2 categories, or can you handle neural syntax as well?
I just got myself a notebook, Suzanne. Already?
Awesome. NICs, neural integrative constraints. There are 5 of them, just as a reminder. Anyone happy to pick up Nix? You can pick up something as well as, if you like, if you've got one category and you think you can hold Nix as well.
Yeah, I could do Nix as well.
Beautiful. And ANS balance. We could kind of all pick up that if you like. So anyone feel free to throw in anything about ANS balance, the ones you volunteered for. And I am going to suggest that while Rosemary and Colette are talking to each other, we all take our videos off, because what that will do is make Colette and Rosemary bigger on the screen, and it hopefully will make it easier to calibrate them. So who else? Brian, I'm just gonna, if I can, stop your video momentarily.
Yeah.
And Patrice, I am just going to stop your video for a moment. And Miriam, if I can find you, I'm just going to stop your video for a moment. There we go. So now we have a lovely big picture of Colette and Rosemary. I'm going to mute myself. Colette, you're doing present state to desired outcome. Yep. What stops you? And then you're going to stop. Beautiful. Have fun.
We will.
Suzanne, just a question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just my thing. Hold on. Oh yeah, if I put it on gallery view, do I get the clients full in my screen?
Gallery view, I'm not sure. Speaker view will give you whoever's speaking at the time, but it means you swap. I think mine is in gallery view, but now because everyone stopped their video, I've just got 2 people showing.
You need to press on the corner of one of the pictures, and on these 3 dots, you will find something that says hide non-video participants, something like that. And in that case, you'll only see Rosemary and Colette.
Beautiful.
Oh, hold on. Oh, because, sorry, just Rosemary, you're the client, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay, because as we're calibrating you, or are we calibrating both? Just
No,
the client.
we are just calibrating Rosemary, but I'm not sure that you...
Yeah, I've already got it. If I pin video Rosemary, I get Rosemary full in screen, which is easier to see what's going on.
Beautiful. So there we go. So if anyone else wants to play with that, hover over the top right hand corner of Rosemary's picture. You'll get 3 white dots on a blue square. If you click on that and then go to pin video, you now have Rosemary in double size.
I'm awfully pleased I'm not looking at me in double size.
You look fine, Rosemary.
My bush shirt.
So I am going to mute myself and leave you 2 lovely ladies to have some fun for, I don't know, we're probably going to be looking at 10 minutes or so, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour tops.
Great.
Have fun.
Good evening, Rosemary, and thank you for coming along this evening and sharing.
Hi. Good to meet you, Colette.
Yes, likewise. Okay, Rosemary, so if I could just ask you, what is your present state currently? Where are you at the moment?
I suppose looking, and I'm picking a sort of, as Suzanne said, a 3 or 4 type thing. And that's around some of the issues that I'm facing for myself in regard to the first 6 months of this year and what does that mean to me. Sure. So just to give you a bit of a brief background, what it sort of brings me into wanting to explore this is around, so in February I was employed, COVID hit, and I remained employed through COVID. I lost my job in June, so middle of June. Being from New Zealand, I don't qualify for any, I suppose, government help. and those sorts of things. So at that crossroads of I'm 61, and I have a number of chronic health issues, one being my back, and I get really good health care over here through my private insurance, as long as I keep paying the private insurance. But then recently, 3 weeks ago, being diagnosed with emphysema. So again, thinking about COVID, which has really impacted us all, where that leaves me from the point of view of going out and being in the workforce. So it's been a long time since I've been a therapist. And I've worked for 20 years as a therapist, on and off. And well, I had my own business, and Suzanne and I started the business and whatnot. And I evolved from there over to Australia 6 years ago, where I've been primarily utilising my skills in leadership and management and those sorts of things with what I know. So working with people or in environments which have social issues or disabilities and those sorts of things. So yeah, I'm sitting here and you know, thinking about the uncertainty in doing something that I haven't done before, which is start an online practice. I had my own practice for 9 years in New Zealand. I am, so my qualifications are NLP, embraining, and I'm also a registered level 4 counsellor. So I have a number of models and theories that I use. And I've worked a lot in A&D, alcohol and drug, domestic violence, behaviour change, that sort of area. So yeah, and it's about stepping out at my age and going, so I'm stepping into this unknown, and sort of checking out that whole thing around, I suppose for me, mBIT offers that check out of, you know, what all parts of me think and what I'm doing, and how that uncertainty looks. And yeah, because it's incredibly uncertain, although it does feel certain as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I'm hearing you. So just so that I can clarify, make sure I'm on the right page, your present state at the moment is you're feeling uncertain. Is that correct?
Yeah. It wavers between that uncertainty and a kind of calmness. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, there's parts of me that, you know, like in my heart, I suppose I feel that anxiety because I can feel it, and whatnot, and because I'm aware of those different brains, it's easy for me to say in my heart and whatnot, and in my head, I just go blank because actually, I don't know what that says, and I don't like to get into that dialogue because it just makes my heart worse, and I've had heart trouble and stuff. But deep down, I suppose it's like, even though there can be a bit of turmoil that matches that, there seems to be I don't know, it's like maybe a calmness, or a knowing or something that's that's kicking in, and it'd be, so having the opportunity to unpack that with someone is probably quite cool for me, because
wonderful. Let's do that together then, shall we?
Yeah.
So your present state is uncertainty with a bit of calm that comes in. You'd like to unpack that. So what is your desired state?
my desired state is really confidence and knowing and being able to see myself as thriving in this business, because if I'm thriving, the business will be thriving. And you know, I do a lot of meditation, so I try and meditate on that, but there's a bit of a block there, you know, actually being able to see that stuff. Yeah, so it's, and I think that that's where the uncertainty comes, is, yeah.
Sure. Awesome. So we're moving from uncertain with some calmness, and your desired outcome today is confidence and just having that knowing. Is that correct? Wonderful. Yeah. So if I could ask you now, Rosemary, what's stopping you?
My instant reaction to that question is my head. There's something in my head that's stopping that. Yet I don't get into my head. Do you know what I mean? It's like.
So I'm just curious. It's a speech. It's a what? I'm just curious. What do you mean by something in my head?
The believing and the uncertainty is in my head. Sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to unpack that for myself, because I know that there's something that, and you know, between this head and stuff, it's I'd almost, if I used a word that jumped out at me, is that disconnect, I suppose, between what I want or what I would like and how I would like to be. And yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. Shall we get started?
Go on.
Is that it, Suzanne?
It is. Thank you, ladies. If everybody would like to come back again. And unpin video. There we go. Oh, now I've got 2 pinned. That's peculiar. Gallery. There we go. So everyone's coming back in. If you would like to come back in, bring your video back on. Some of you I turned off, so I'm not sure whether you need me to turn you back on again.
I think I need you to turn me back on, Suzanne.
Yeah, you need to do it, Suzanne.
The power.
She's got power this week.
I was going to say that's way too much control.
It's saying ask to start video rather than starting video, so I hope that sends you a message that then says you can start from your end. If I'm starting you up and you don't want to start up, apologies, just turn it off again. Oh, there's an awful lot more that I'm turning on than I think I turned off, but there you go. Dima, I'm going to guess that you don't want to come back on because you weren't on before. Dara, I can't seem to get yours back on. Oh, Jessie, I didn't even know you were there. And Tatiana, I'm not going to bring you on because I know you're usually at work, but if that's a mistake, let me know. Private message me and I will. Okay, are we all back on that wants to be on? If not, send me a chat and I will chase you down in the participants list. Alrighty. Excellent session. Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. And I'm sorry, I didn't realise you'd been diagnosed with emphysema. I'm sorry to hear that.
We will get through.
We will. You will. You will. And you know where we are if we can do anything to help. Alrighty. So let's go back through the list from the top. Who was doing direct references and what did you notice?
I was doing direct references and I noticed that for a very long time I was sitting here going, I've got nothing to write down. And then all just kind of came out all at once. She talked about what's going on in her heart, feeling anxiety. She talked about her head. She didn't actually directly reference the gut. She said something else that wasn't a direct reference. And then she just talked a bit more about what's going on in her head.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So one thing I was going to pre-frame this whole feedback with, remember you are giving descriptive data. You're not interpreting. Okay, so you're just saying what you saw or what you heard. You're not saying, oh, she was doing this with her hands. This must mean that, you know, she had a terrible strawberry ice cream when she was 3. So we're doing no interpretations. Okay, who else was doing direct references?
I was, Christelle.
Yep.
So what I understand, as I understand, that the calibration only starts after you started asking what's stopping you. Or do you start calibrating before that as well? Because I've made a difference between the two. Because after she asked what's stopping you, she only mentioned her head twice.
I love that because it gets me to say my favorite answer. It depends. So you calibrate the whole time, right? You're calibrating all the time, from the first email, from the first phone call, from the first visit, from the first walk down the corridor, all the way through. And when you do that neural syntax mapping and the where's your leverage point, where's your access point, that's from the point at which you say, and what stops you. So then you do that extra kind of depth of calibration at that point, but you are calibrating the whole time. Yeah. So both and, really.
Yes. So in that case, it's the heart twice and then also the head 3 times that she mentioned specifically.
Yeah. So interesting, no direct reference to the gut. Okay. Predicates. Who was on predicates? What did you notice?
I was Dima. I think she said because she knew mBIT, she was literally referring directly to the brains. But as you said, she dismissed the gut. She only talked about her head and her heart. At the beginning, she was talking, saying something about me, and she pointed to her throat. So I guess this is, I'm not sure if that's a predicate or something else. However, I noticed that she pointed out to her throat a couple of times when she was talking about herself and moving forward and that. And then there was pointing to the heart as well. When she said needing help. But,
yeah, so someone else in a minute will be doing kind of gestures. So let's be careful not to kind of unpack all of those for them before they get there. But in terms of the predicates language-wise, so what other language words, descriptors did you hear that would have indicated head, heart, or gut without using the word head, heart, or gut?
When she asked her about the desire state, she said really to be confident. So I think it's really refers more to the head, sort of.
Yep.
The knowing. And then she said, see myself thrive. And I guess seeing is also in the head. And she used the word block of being able to see. So again, that's maybe a nick, but at the same time a predicate, because it's about seeing, and again a reference to the head. These are the ones. And then at the end she said disconnecting between what I want, and that's reference to the heart, what the heart wants, and what I like, and then what I think, and that's the head. So it's
beautiful. Now if we can dig a couple into those, see myself thrive. So we've put that as a predicate at head because of the word see, and that makes logical sense. What else could it be? See myself thrive.
Myself is identity, so it's probably gut.
Well, could be, like, we don't know, right? So it could be, but you're holding a curious kind of, yeah, maybe. And thrive, where could that be?
Heart.
could be a value in heart, right? So just those 3 words, see myself thrive, could be any of the 3 brains in those 3 words. So what else would you be looking for to help you go, which one do I sense it is? Now I'm going to guess, because you said see myself thrive, that's see, that's head, that you've picked up on something more than the word that made see stand out for you.
Yeah, she kept, her eyes were always going up towards the head. So it's more of a thinking thing, something that she thinks.
Beautiful. So this is where you're always going to be looking for 2 or 3 or 4 things before you come out with, I think this is head, because, you know, often there's a range of brains being indicated or could be indicated. The other one for me would be, and I don't remember it happening in that case, but sometimes there's a semantic packing where, you know, whether this is going to be exaggerated, but if Rosemary had said, see myself thriving, rather than see myself thriving, you're going to pick up the emphasis in the words within the speech that may give an indicator, and it would be more subtle than that, but you'll pick it up unconsciously. Sometimes it's about reflecting on what might I have picked up here that is taking me to head in those 3 words. Does that make sense? Beautiful. Okay, anyone else doing, where were we, predicates?
Yeah, I was doing it as well, and she was using feeling it. So I can feel it and I want to feel it, and dialogue, which is head, knowing, which is head, and then after the stopping, believing, which is head, and what I want, what I'd like, which is heart.
Believing again could be, so you can have beliefs in your heart or gut as well.
It could, yeah.
Yeah, so lots of these are not black and white until you add up all the bits. Beautiful.
I'm wondering, there was a direct reference she used. I'm just curious. She said, in my heart, I feel anxiety.
Yeah.
Remember that the anxiety is more of a gut feeling. So that was very interesting for me.
Oh, okay. So interesting. For me, anxiety is a head thing.
Ah, yes, me too.
Suzanne, I just want to ask, she also said deep down.
Deep.
Yeah, that's a reference to the
Yeah. How deep? How deep? Is it deep to heart? Is it deep to gut? Or is it deep to pelvis? How deep's deep? So again, there you'd be looking for other things. So were the hands gesturing at that point that would give you an indication how deep? And anxiety, I think it's a beautiful, another ambiguity one in terms of, you know, just because anxiety to one of us means head and one of us means gut and one of us means heart, who's right? Well, who's right is Rosemary, because it's her anxiety, right?
Definitely.
So if she says she feels it in the heart, it's in the heart, regardless of where we would immediately think of the word anxiety going.
Yeah. Interestingly would be then to know what the head is saying about the anxiety.
Yeah, beautiful.
And whether it comes from the heart or the gut.
Yeah. So it might be something that if that was your actual client, you'd be logging that, because when you go into talking to head, heart or gut, that might be something you specifically ask about. Yep, beautiful. Okay, one of my favorites. Who was doing metaphors and figure of speech?
Yes.
Patrice, what did you find?
It was full of it. The uncertainty, stepping into the unknown, wavers between calmness, parts of me, deep down, I suppose, and knowingness / calmness. My instant reaction to that question. A lot of this was, I was going more gut, being able to step forward, and because there was a lot of I am, the parts of me, trying to make those congruent. Stepping into the unknown is still your gut moving forward. And a lot of the gestures, there was touching the forehead, and then
careful! Careful! You're going to be stepping on Mrs. Gestures. Whoever's doing gestures.
Yeah. I was a gesture, but
you were a gesture as well. Okay.
I was a gesture. Yeah.
Let's stick with metaphor, because you are an expert metaphor hunter. And I am going to wildly guess, only because I can put myself in that category, that if I had been doing metaphors, I might not have come up with such a big list.
Oh, really?
So you're an excellent metaphor hunter.
Yeah, I love it. It's yeah, I was so watching that speech, the speaking that Rosemary was doing, and that's why I got my pen and my paper. I'm so glad I did.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Who was anyone else doing metaphors? Has she left you any that you noticed that she hasn't said?
The only thing to point out that I thought was really interesting, and I would want to kind of question around, was when she said, "What all parts of me thinks." And at that time, if you looking at the gestures that she was using at that time, there was lots of kind of incongruence with. So for me, that was probably the one that stood out the most.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And we're going there now. Gestures. There were so many gestures. You could have turned your sound off and still got the story.
Exactly.
It was lovely. So who was on gestures? And remember, we're not doing interpretation. We're just doing what gestures did you notice? And which brains might they allude to?
Lots of them.
I did. There was the touching of the forehead and straight to the back of the head. A lot of hands to throat. And there was that beautiful hug of Rosemary's heart. She gave her heart a beautiful hug. The visual.
Okay, so that's where we're at risk of going into interpretation. So she put her hands on her heart.
But did she hug it?
Did she hug it? We don't know.
She made this gesture at that point before at the moment she was going through her head where there was this conflict starting up, and she did this.
There was definitely a crossing, like a closing of the clothing, and then the hands held there. So that's descriptive. There was another point where there was definitely both hands on the heart. Absolutely.
The shoulders went up and together, and she was closing her body that way, which actually did I interpreted it like embracing her heart or holding her heart.
So that's definitely interpretation. Even closing the body is an interpretation.
Yeah.
Shoulders going up, shoulders coming forward. That's descriptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, so this is the bit where as humans we struggle to do this because our temptation is to make meaning. And we've got to hold off because our meaning will be very different from Rosemary's meaning. So keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean. What other gestures did you see? There were so many.
There is leaning to right and left, and what I noticed that when she leant, and now I'm looking at I'm thinking Rosemary, when Rosemary went to my right, it was her left, and when she vice versa.
So just do a check, Rosemary. Put your right hand up.
Hang on, I got to see Rosemary. Where's her? Okay.
So you see.
Thank you.
So this is my right. Yep. See how we're different. So some on Zoom as a coach, you need to be really careful, especially if you're master coach and you're doing any interpretation left and right, because some people's cameras are reversed.
Exactly. So I would need to know whether she was going right or left. But what I noticed is when Rosemary went to one side, it was in reference to what she knows. When she spoke of, I've got these modalities, and she went to this side of the screen. So I just put, in my mind, that's what it is, just so I could just see if there's a pattern. And when there was not knowing, the speaking of not knowing went over to this side. And that was even with the hands. The head would tilt toward what I know when there was speaking of what I know, and the head would tilt this way when don't know. which I found, and I would like to ask a few more questions just to be really sure on that. But I just noticed that moving to one side, moving to the other.
And if you got that consistently, there's a beautiful subconscious communication there that at some point you might ask a question further down the coaching session where she goes, I don't know, but her head goes to the other side, which might imply, well, her body knows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Any other gestures? Who else was looking at?
Yeah, I was. There was a lot of eye movements, looking up, looking sideways. In the beginning, she was leaning more forward, and at some point, after a couple of minutes, she started to lean back into her chair. There was one point I forgot. There was, that was at the stopping question where she held her breath for a few seconds.
Yeah, beautiful ANS. We'll come to ANS in a minute. There was two big ANS ones that I thought worthy of writing down.
And when Rosemary said deep down, she shrugged her shoulders and it looked like her hands went into her lap. So they were not around here or up. You couldn't see the hands, but it looked like they were joined together when she said deep down. And I thought that was notable.
Beautiful. So if you're sitting there going, I didn't see any of that, that's okay, right? Because you only have to see enough to start the conversation. So I remember when I first started doing this, I was really conscious that compared to other people in the room, I was not picking up nearly as much as other people. And I was like going, I can't do it. So it's okay. You only need to see enough, hear enough, extracept enough to start the conversation. And what is the worst case scenario? That you go for the wrong communication first and you get no communication. So you have to move to the next brain. So there's some beautiful stuff coming up here, and it's okay if you didn't see all of it, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. ANS. Who noticed? Because this was one we all said at the end, well, we'll all just pick up ANS if we do. What did you notice ANS wise?
Scratching. Lots of scratching.
There was a bit of scratching going on, eh? Any breathing? We've mentioned one already. Brian mentioned one.
And there was, I think, an exhale when she asked her, what is stopping you? There was like a, and then she, sort of a sigh. As far as I remember.
Okay, and there may well have been. I thought I saw, literally after the what stops you, a massive breath hold.
Oh, okay.
And it seemed to be quite long. And then there was an exhale, but there was a long breath hold. Quite near the beginning, like kind of in the present state, there was a big sigh. Deep down, I suppose. So there was a big parasympathetic sigh. They were the two noticeable ones that I picked up breathing wise. And there may have been others. Anyone else pick up any others? Nope. Okay, where are we going next? Prime functions. Now I know I picked up prime functions, but who else picked up prime functions? Anyone else?
I did.
What did you notice?
Well, there were a lot of prime functions in the present state, because that talk was longer than the rest. She started with mean to me and thinking of, me being 61, stepping out, move to, me being, certain, uncertain, calmness, opportunities. In the desired outcome, see myself thrive, We already discussed that. Confident, thriving business, and knowing. And in the block, meaning, knowing, and disconnect, which means connect. These were the ones I picked up.
And I think I was the only other person other than that picking up prime function. So I thought there was a little bit of story in there that would indicate head around my qualifications were, the models and theories I use are. The word unknown occasionally in terms of, you know, prime function, cognitive perception, unknown, it's unknown to me. We've already had feel anxiety in the heart. So we had that kind of a heart one, and yeah, the parts of me which we mentioned earlier on, I had again as prime functions at identity level.
Yeah.
So yeah, beautiful. Okay, neural syntax. Now this is where's Crystal is, that this is where you only map the block from the point that you say what stops you. So the syntax bit is from the point at which you ask, so what stops you? So who was doing syntax? What did you notice? Did I fail to ask that one in the beginning? Did we not?
Was that bigger picture? Did you put that? Yeah, I put my hand up for that. So okay. I see myself, and thriving is what I picked up. Disconnect. And yeah, that's, I think, yeah, I put so much down for the other.
And this is where, as a coach, right, you've got to be able to multitask a bit, because you are looking at quite a lot of things at one time, and especially when you come to that syntax mapping, it is kind of almost a separate step, and you've got to remember to deliberately map the order of the brains at the point at which you ask that question, so what stops you?
Mm-hmm.
So what did we notice in the what stops you in terms of where did, so my hallucination, if you like, so what stops you, there was a big breath hold. What was the first brain Rosemary went to after the release of the breath?
It was deep down her gut.
I think she referred to her head. My head is stopping me.
Yeah. I thought it was head too.
Yeah,
so,
it was head. Meaning, knowing was the first thing she came up with.
And the other bit in there about, and I wrote down the word, something in my head is stopping me. And then after another question to follow that up, it was, I don't get into my head.
Yeah, which is,
and that, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So my head's stopping me because I don't go there. Just saying, Mrs. Brown.
Yeah, and I got, sorry, Suzanne, I got my instant reaction to that question when before the head side of it. So the reaction is.
So if I as a client go into, well, my instant reaction is, what brain's that likely to be?
It's your gut. I would have thought it was your gut, because you're, okay.
My instant reaction, to me, it's about making meaning.
Okay.
I'm going up to kind of the processing of it, the making sense of it, yeah. And I might not be right, but that's, yeah.
There can be so many meanings, can't there, Suzanne? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've only asked one question at that point. You've not gone into a big, deep coaching session. So again, you know, be gentle with yourselves. Be okay that you might not have it spot on. That's okay. This is just to get the coaching conversation going, to go in at where you think you're going to get quickest leverage, which brain are you likely to get easiest communication from? And if you get it wrong and that brain doesn't talk to you, you don't stay there too long. You go to the next one. Okay, what else did we got? Nicks. Any nicks? So we've actually talked quite a lot. Predicates, direct references, prime functions. Were there any nicks that showed up? Was there anything that didn't have a voice at all?
Yeah, her gut had much less to say.
So it had less to say, but it was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of one being completely excluded, no, we heard from all three. Was one louder than the other two, or one less loud than? Yeah, I think there was. There wasn't a huge amount in gut, but there wasn't that much from heart either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a lot, no.
So interesting. Where was dreadful grammar? Was there any indication of any conflict between brains?
Yes. Yeah.
Which ones? What did you pick up?
When she was asked what's stopping you, she said there's a disconnect between what I want, like, and what I think.
Beautiful. So there's one nick. There's two more nicks. What are the other two nicks? Rather than me giving you the whole list, I've given you 3 of the 5. What are the other 2?
With the one where she said my head is stopping me and then I don't get into my head, would that be a nick?
It could be. Could be. So
and
she said
she also said that the dialogue with my head makes my heart anxious.
So again, that could be that they're in a little bit of, not conflict as such in terms of disagreement, but certainly not in beautiful alignment and harmony with each other. Yep.
Yep.
Anyone want to say what the other 2 nicks are? So
she said my head is blank.
Blankly blank.
At some point she said my head is blank when she was talking about the current state. Isn't that sort of a nick? So basically it's not communicating much, or
could be.
It's not saying much.
Yep, could be at that stage at least. But the head was communicating quite a lot the rest of the time. So one of the other nicks is one of the brains doing the job of another. Was there any evidence of that?
Could be see myself thrive.
See myself thrive, feeling anxiety in the heart. So there's a couple there you might want to ask a few more questions about. What nick have I forgotten then? There's 5. Come on, trainers. We've had exclude, we've had dominate, we've had in conflict, we've had, okay, I've got it as I go through the list. We've got doing the job of the other, and the last one's the order of, right?
Yeah, sequence, yeah.
So we kind of covered that under syntax anyway. Awesome. Anything else you saw that would be noteworthy that hasn't come up under any of those categories?
That parts of me, I think I would probably go a little bit further into that, the parts of me, and trying to see what part is actually stopping Rosemary.
So even at this stage, in terms of at the very introduction before you've done your breathing. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to explore it more.
I'd certainly like to explore it more.
Definitely.
I'm not sure I'd explore it too much more before putting her into beautiful coherence and then going into the gut and exploring it. So why would I say that? Justify my answer for me.
Yeah, I want to ask you that. Why do you say that going to the gut specifically?
Anyone else agree with me? Why might you do the breathing before you go and explore the gut?
But is that so that the head doesn't take over, so the gut can actually say something about it, and so that it's not just like the head saying, this is the part, you know, like the gut can say things?
Yep, very possibly. And to be fair, the head can still do that after you've done the breathing, but
the anxiety.
Because so far she hasn't mentioned anything about her gut in the bit that we've done so far. She hasn't mentioned anything about the gut and getting her to go into balanced breathing. I'm going to ask her to breathe down into her belly. So we're going to start to at least touch the gut so that it can come and have a chat.
Yeah, and I think so too, because if you're talking about parts and you're talking about identity, Other than pelvic brain, that's as deep as we go. So if I'm going to go deep with somebody, I want to know they're in a good, grounded, coherent place before I go there. And if there's a problematic part, before you've done the breathing, all you're going to hear from it is the problem version of it. The stuck version of it, which is good to have a baseline. We've got a baseline. All parts of me think, stepping out at my age. There was a few bits where parts came in. So we know they're there. We know they're significant. They've already shown up. But yeah, I think I answered it. Interesting that I would go to head to answer that question, but I think I answered it that way because of safety, of giving that coherence and groundedness before you explored it too much, because at this point you have no idea what's going to come up in those parts.
And there seemed to be a natural point when Rosemary seemed to be, yep, okay, I'm finished telling, and she knows, Rosemary knows, you know, present state, desired outcome, block, and there seemed to be a finality to, okay, I've shared that, so that it was a natural progression to, yep, let's go to the next stage.
Yeah, I have to say it would make a beautiful session. So Rosemary, I'm sure if you you asked any of these lovely people, they'd probably give you an hour or so this week and go through the whole session with you and actually get you to a resolution on it. And if no one volunteers, you know, you can just Skype me. So yeah. Any other comments or
yeah,
in terms of calibration?
I have a bit of a curiosity around the sentence that she said when she said, "In my head, I go blank," which doesn't sound at all like a head going blank to me. To me, that sounds like a head telling a story.
Funny that, eh?
Yeah. So I heard her say that, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. That feels like something that I want to explore a little bit more."
Yeah.
I was actually wondering about that. Would it be exactly what you said, Susan, before about the specific brain functioning very well in one function but not functioning on the other one? So maybe she can analyze and think about it. However, maybe she's stuck on a creativity point of view, or
possibly. Yeah, possibly, or pretending not to know.
Yeah. Cool.
Or one identity knowing and another identity not knowing. So
yeah. Or maybe going blank somewhere else, and the head's just telling the story that, oh, it's me going blank. Because I noticed that we didn't hear anything from the gut. We heard a lot.
Okay, as much as I want to go down this conversation, it's 9:30 and I'm aware we're now getting into it, and we're going to leave Rosemary going, oh, I'm curious, what would they have? Right, so one, check. Rosemary, are you okay at this point? Because if not, we can stay on the line and spend time afterwards.
I'm great. And
awesome.
It's been really interesting to reconnect me with the processes that we know. And it is, as I'm listening to what people have picked up around calibration, it's been really interesting, my internal dialogue, but I'm fine.
So
and did you notice the difference? Because I've gone, I'm fine, while I'm shaking my head, and I just and I go, oh my God.
We noticed that because we're expert calibrators, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Anything you want to kind of say in terms of our what we noticed? Anything stand out for you that, oh, I was aware of that and nobody's mentioned that, or well, a few people said that and actually I'm not sure I agree? Because you can go either way.
Yeah, and knowing that there's not necessarily anything right or anything wrong, because we all see it through our own lens, and that interpretation of what we're hearing and what we're seeing. I think everything resonated, and it's food for thought. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being
Is your
black
gut
and white.
speaking now?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It would have, I must say, it would have been nice to be able to go that next step with Colette, because I found connecting at that level was good. So
yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, it's 9:30 here, but it's 7:30 in Oz, right? If you want somebody to go straight through with you now, I'm sure one of the Australian coaches would very happily just carry on with you so that you can take that through after this call.
Yeah, look, I don't want to. If I leave it, I leave it. If I go through, I go through.
Your choice.
Yeah. You know me, Suzanne, non-committal.
Hey, how's that pattern working in your life?
Oh, look.
Rosemary, if it doesn't suit you now, I would love to connect with you and work further with you on this.
There you go.
I'm in Queensland, so we can either do Skype, or I'm happy to catch up and do it in person. I've got a beautiful coaching room here on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, I'm up at Harvey Bay End.
Oh, well, we can do Skype, or I can come on a holiday. No, we can do it via Zoom. I'd be honoured. I'd love to do that.
Beautiful.
Would you like to take it through? Yeah, I'd love that.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'd enjoy that, Colette.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you might want to throw in the chat line your emails or something so that you can connect with each other, or cell phone numbers or something, or private chat each other your contact details, so that before you go, you've got a way of following that up. That would be awesome. Thank you, Colette, for that. And
okay, I'm gonna.
Don't want to leave you kind of half cooked.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I know you're fine. I know you're fine. Okay. Any other final comments, questions? What's arisen for you? Are you sitting there going, oh, I'm all right at calibration? Or do you go, oh, actually, I noticed this stuff more than that. I don't really concentrate on, I don't necessarily look for whatever, metaphors. I mean, Patrice was beautiful at doing metaphors.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm driving a car right now, learning how to drive the car.
Yeah. And that's good, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
That's good.
I thought it was a valuable exercise. Thank you very much, Colette, and thank you especially, Rosemary, for being that example for us, that model for us. And it was a great exercise, Suzanne, to focus just on a couple of things, because it's just good to focus on just a couple of things. It really helps sharpen that, which is nice. So I was like, okay, I'm not paying attention to that, I'm just going to pay attention to this. And it was valuable, very valuable. So, and listening to everyone else was just like, wow, yeah, great, very, very rich.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, I echo.
And Zoom is perfect,
really
Rosemary.
Thank you, Colette.
So next
I'm
week,
excited.
I am hiding away in a flat to try to write mBIT Advancing. So there's no wisdom call next week. The following week, it's on Friday night, and we're looking at nibs and nicks. So that's the 7th of August.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Been fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone. It's been great.
Thank you, Suzanne. Such an honour. Thank you for giving up your time.
Well, before you all disappear into the ether, I'm going to throw it out there. Does anyone want to facilitate that call on the 7th on nibs and nicks?
I'm happy if you want to take a break, or if someone else wants to step up.
Beautiful. Done. Beth, you're on. So I'll still come, and I'll still have, Zoom calls already set up and stuff, so I'll still come. But yeah, Beth will be facilitating nibs and nicks. It'd be good to have somebody different, someone, a different way of approaching it. And who knows what joys and funs and activity we'll get up to.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Look forward to it.
Beautiful.
No worries.
All right.
All
Look
right.
after yourselves. For the people in Melbourne and Avalon, especially thinking of you with all that you've got going on at the moment. And remember, there's the mBIT Christianity group. If you need prayer support this week, then just flick that through on there, and we're with you.
Will do. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Speak soon,
Bye.
Rosemary.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.